Why is it easy for some people to create wealth but extremely hard for some others? That's what I would like to share with us today on the topic, the divergence for wealth creation. But today is going to be from the biblical perspective. Yes, if you really want to look at the principles of success, the very first principle of success were the principle that God gave in the book of Genesis chapter 1. It's so fascinating to understand how the stats state and explain everything. He said in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I don't actually know how you reason when you read that particular scripture, but when I read the scripture in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, I ask myself, but why? Why did God choose to create the heaven and the earth? I know one of the scriptures says, heaven is God's throne, earth is his footstool. Does it mean he needed a place to place his leg or whatsoever? The only answer I could come up with is this, that God created heaven and earth because he's creator, therefore it is in his nature to create. So we can see heaven and earth as an expression and extension of God's creativity. Yes, the very first time God introduced himself to man, he made us to understand that he's a creator. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But what's interesting to know is this. Among the whole exceeding attributes of God, his love, his kind, his holy, his omnipotent, his powerful, his excellence, none of those things did he tell us first about him. But the first thing he told us about him is that he is a creator. Why? Well, if you want to relate that to us in our own case, if you meet somebody for the first time in your life, the first thing you tell them may not necessarily be the most important thing about you, but the first thing you tell them will be the most important thing you want them to know about you. I believe I have a witness. If I have a witness, you can comment that. I mean, if you meet somebody for the first time, the first thing you tell them about yourself, about your life, may not be the most important thing about you, but it will definitely be the most important thing you want them to know about you. So God introducing himself to man may be telling us that it's important for us to know that God is a creator. Now, why is it important for us to know that God is a creator? In the same book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, just like we stated it now, the first introduction God introduced himself to man is that he's a creator. But the first thing God told us about man is that he made man in his image after his likeness. I think in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 to 27, he made man in his image after his likeness. Now, if God made man in his image after his likeness, and he has introduced himself to us as a creator, which means he created us to create things, and he made us to make stuffs. This is the reason why no one ever gets fulfilled until they live in their creative space. You won't be fulfilled if you are not creating anything. Now, what's interesting to know is this. God, in his infinite wisdom, deposited different aspects of his creativity in the inside of everybody. That means I have creativity, you have creativity, everybody around has creativity. And God designed it in such a way that what your creativity lacks, mine has. What mine lacks, yours have. In other words, God did not create us to be codependent. He did not create us to be independent. Rather, he created us to be interdependent in such a way that everyone here is here to support everyone else. So the first thing God told us about man is that he made man in his image, which means he created man to create things. He made man to make things. That is why you see some people are creating music, some people are creating wall, some people are creating furniture from wood. You know, they are creating furniture from wood with hammer, whatsoever. Until you create, you won't be fulfilled. And the very first thing God told man, now you're following the first thing God introduced himself as, that he's a creator. And the first thing he told us about man is that he created us in his image, which means he created us to create and made us to make stuff. But the very first thing God told man, which is in Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, is be fruitful, multiply, replenish. But before those words, before the first thing God said to man, there was a preface. What was the preface? The first word that came before the thing God said to man is, and God blessed them and said, be fruitful, multiply. So God said, be fruitful, multiply. Why? Because he blessed them first. This simply means before God gave the command, he already gave the capacity. Before he gave the assignment, he already gave the ability. He said, and blessed them and said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. So you want to be fruitful, just know that you are already blessed to be fruitful. So it's so interesting for me to know that if I have anything to do in me, I already have the ability and the capacity to do them. Now, if you look at what God told them from the beginning, in one book I read titled 24 Access by Daniel Priestley, one of the assertions he made there is that income follows access. Now, the reason why people that have wealth is because they have income producing access. That means they've created valuable access. Now, the people that don't have wealth, the reason why they don't have wealth is because they've not created income producing access. Majority, their only access through which they only earn in real time. Who are those people? Those are the people that sell their time to the highest bidders. I'm talking about the hourly, monthly workers. Now, the only access they have to earn is doing what they know how to do. As long as they keep doing what they know how to do, they get paid. But personally, I don't want to be my only access. I want to have some access that does not require my attention and my intention to get paid. And I believe that is the same thing that you want for yourself. And the more access you create, the more wealth you have. The more access you create and accumulate, the more wealthy you become. Now, if you look at your life, for example, you want to check the access through which you earn. If the numbers are small, definitely your income is going to be small. But if your income is high, just look into your life and check the access you have. You will see that they are large in number. So income follows access. The more access you are able to create and accumulate, the more wealthy you become. Now the question is, how do we get access? Two ways. You either create them or you acquire them. You get access by either creating them or acquiring them. Don't forget, the first thing God said to man after he blessed them, he said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. What is a fruit? A fruit is a living organism that sees in himself the ability to produce. A fruit is a living organism whose seed is in itself. Now, the seed of an apple is inside the apple. The seed of an orange is inside the orange. So when God said be fruitful, what he meant is, he meant produce on the outside based on what I have put inside of you. I mean, produce on the outside based on what I put on the inside of you. And this is the genesis of access creation. This is the beginning of access creation. Until you understand that you are like a fruit whose seed is inside of it, and that is your number one way of being fruitful. And don't forget this, be fruitful. Fruitfulness is not what you do, fruitfulness is what you become. It won't make any sense to say, do fruitful. No, you be fruitful. But on the other way around, multiplication, because it said be fruitful, multiply. Multiplication is what you do. It's not what you become. Multiplication is what you do. You wouldn't say be multiply, but you say do multiply. Now, multiplication is what you do. Fruitfulness is what you become. Now, how do you do what you want to do? You do what you want to do by becoming what you want to do. Now, you do what you want to do by becoming. So you become first. And you can only become when you understand that the capacity to become is inside. The capacity of a fruit to become a tree is inside, which is coming as a seed. So the capacity of anyone to be fruitful is inside the person. That is your creative ability. So your number one way to get access is to be creative. Your number one way to get access is to be creative. So to be creative, meaning produce on the outside based on what I put on the inside. This is just the genesis of wealth creation and accumulation. Now, why is it that some people don't have access? The reason why some people don't have access is because they have been programmed by what I call cultural, hypnotic, societal mechanism so that they don't have to believe, they don't have to trust their creativity. And because they do not believe or trust their creativity because of the societal, hypnotic, cultural mechanism, they cannot create any assets which income can follow. Don't forget, income follows access. And your number one way to have access is by you creating access. Is by you understanding that the first access you need is from you. Now, since you don't believe in your ability to create access, now since you don't believe that you actually have what it takes to produce and create access, you don't believe in your ability, you don't believe in the capacity that you have what it takes to create the access that you need, you cannot create, because you don't believe in your creativity, you cannot create any asset that income will follow. Why? Because you don't believe in your creative ability. Because you don't believe in your creative capacity. Therefore, you will lack access. So this is the reason why there is so much divergence in wealth creation. If you take majority that you can see that are wealthy today, 90% of them is traceable to development of their creative ability. Just look around you. Just look around you, people that you see that are doing well, 90% of them came up by first of all getting their first asset, creating their first asset, which is their creative ability. So you want to be wealthy, you want to match the gap between you and people you see that are rich or wealthy. First of all, try to bridge the gap by understanding that the first access you need is what you can create, which is your creative ability, your fruitfulness. It's only when you understand this that you have been blessed to be fruitful, which is your seed, to multiply. Multiplication means to increase. Now, when you multiply, God means what it means, be fruitful, multiply. That means He wants us to create things that perpetuates, things that will flow income to us, that like an asset. When you do this, you increase, and then you use those your increase to replenish the earth. Be fruitful, multiply, replenish, you subdue. It's only when these things are done you can actually have dominion. So you want to be wealthy. The reason for the divergence of wealth creation is number one, people do not understand that they have creativity that will help them to create their first and primary assets. If you can understand this and take note of those things you need to develop as your assets creation, you will be a high flyer and your edge wealthy to the greatest surprise. Thank you and stay connected.